Abdul Hamid II, who was a Turkish king, but his life changed for the worse shortly after he started wearing it. Due to the military revolution of the Young Turks, he was overthrown as king and spent his last days in prison. These are some of the biggest mistakes in fast food history. In 2015, Burger King offered a limited edition Halloween Whopper with a black burger bun. The reviews for the burger were actually pretty good, but it turns out that the food dye in the bun had one unfortunate consequence. It caused customers to have bright green poop. Chipotle's first attempt at queso was a huge failure. Customers complained that it was watery and flavorless, and the negative press caused Chipotle's stock to drop. Fortunately, Chipotle dropped the old queso for a better one. In the 1980s, McDonald's rolled out the McSpaghetti, but customers had no interest in eating pizza and spaghetti from a burger place, so McDonald's discontinued the item. Finally, we have Taco Bell's seafood salad. Because of the success from McDonald's Filet-O-Fish, lots of fast food chains wanted to try seafood as well, but Taco Bell's crab, shrimp, and whitefish salad was a huge flop, and it was removed from the menu after several reports of food poisoning. Dark secrets that zoos don't want you to know. Zoo pens are a possible source of salmonella, E. coli, and many other diseases, so be careful when touching the animals. Some animals can suffer from zoonosis, which they get from being held in a zoo that causes them to tick, groom excessively, and make them anxious. And to control it, they give them medication. When zoos have too many animals in very little space, they give them pills to prevent them from having babies, or they sacrifice them at birth. The food given to animals isn't always the best. In many cases, they're given processed foods, and animals like tigers who only eat meat develop dental problems and become anxious because they can't hunt. Finally, it's 50 times more expensive to keep an elephant in a zoo than to let it run free. The homeless teen who invented Disney. From an early age, Walter Disney showed interest in drawing, and in 1919, he got a job as an apprentice at a commercial art studio. While he was there, he met a friend, and together they opened a drawing business called Disney Eyeworks. But unfortunately, they didn't get any customers, so he decided to start a new business called Laugh-O-Gram Films, but again, had no luck. Because of this, he became homeless, and with only $40 in his pocket, he moved to Hollywood. Universal Pictures hired him to create an animated series called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. The character was a hit, but Universal kept the rights to the rabbit, leaving Walt out of the picture. A little while later, he created a short film with the financial help of Pat Powers. In that film, he included a character that would become one of the most famous cartoons in the world, Mickey Mouse. But eventually, Powers stopped financing it, and Walt went into depression. But soon after, Joseph Schenck encouraged him to animate with color, which resulted in the film Snow White, released in 1937. Today, Walt Disney Studios is one of the most successful companies in the world, with an estimated value of $130 billion. These inspectors found 110 violations at a restaurant called China Buffet. When the interviewers got there, they found steak lying on the ground, and the sink where they cleaned dishes looked like this. Just a few things that the inspectors found were 6 live roaches near a food prep table, a bunch of different meats laying out and not in the freezer, the dishwasher wasn't sanitizing, there was mold everywhere, an employee was smoking in the food prep area, a bathroom in the kitchen had sewage all over the floor which made the whole place stink, and that's just 6 of the 110 violations. When they asked the restaurant owner a few questions, this is what he had to say.
No cameras.
No cameras what? First of all, don't touch. First of all, don't touch the camera.
Don't touch the camera. Talk to my attorney. Don't touch my camera. Don't touch my camera.
People who survived the impossible. On April 5th, 2015, Victoria Sealiers went parachuting. She had gone many times before, so she had lots of experience. But her husband, Emil, sabotaged her parachute without her knowing. She fell 4,000 feet before hitting the ground going 60 miles per hour. In most cases, that would be fatal, but luckily, she hit a soft part of the field that had just been plowed. So she ended up surviving but was badly injured. The police later found out that her husband was seeing 2 other ladies, and he had promised one of them that he would leave his wife and take her life insurance money for the 2 of them after her death. They also found out that he had tried to murder her a week before they went parachuting as well. He opened a gas valve in the kitchen while she was sleeping, then went to his ex-wife's house to sleep. Luckily, she woke up and smelled the gas in time to prevent anything bad from happening. Her husband, Emil, was then sentenced to life in prison. Here's what cartoon characters would look like in real life. Daffy Duck from Looney Tunes, Daisy from Looney Tunes, Speedy Gonzales from Looney Tunes, Tiger from Winnie the Pooh, Chase from Paw Patrol, Bing Bong from Inside Out, Bruni from Frozen 2, Sandy from SpongeBob, Judy Hopps from Zootopia, Flounder from The Little Mermaid, Perry the Platypus from Phineas and Ferb, and the cat from Alice in Wonderland. This farmer found a possible alien egg, but then a scientist tells him the truth. On one Christmas day, Jose left his house to go on a morning walk. As he walked alongside a river, something strange caught his eye. On the edge of the river, surrounded by water and mud, was a huge gray object that looked like an egg. He rushed home to tell his family what he had found, and his wife laughed because she didn't believe him. He went back to show her, and even dug out the mud around it to see how big it actually was, and it ended up being over 3 feet long. He told the public about this, and everyone started creating rumors rumors about what it was. But after a lot of research from scientists, they discovered that it was actually a shell. 15,000 years ago, glyptodons roamed the Earth, and after the scientists did some studies on the shell, they came to the conclusion that that's what it was from. Here's how to become the world's first trillionaire. The competition to be the richest person in the world right now has been in between Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. But this could change in the future because of an industry that hasn't yet been started, which is asteroid mining. Gold, silver, palladium, platinum, and much more can be extracted from asteroids between Mars and Jupiter. For example, the asteroid 16 Psyche has enough supply of ferronickel for the whole world to last for millions of years. The person who starts this industry will make money like never seen before without even traveling that far, because there's valuable asteroids close to Earth, like the 162,173 Ryugu, which is estimated at $83 billion. So far, no one's been able to pull it off because taking things to space is really expensive. And the most important question is, how are they going to extract the metals from the asteroids? The most uncomfortable products ever designed. Number 1, this child car seat. In order to help parents keep their children quiet in car seats, a designer came up with the idea to paint Disney's Princess Cinderella on it. It looks good when there's a small child sitting in it, but as they get older, you'll have to adjust the headrest, and to do that, you have to stretch Cinderella's neck. Number 2, these Kleenex tissues. We all know the typical Spider-Man pose, and someone decided to put that on a Kleenex box, and whoever designed it didn't think it through, because they put the image in a way where it looks like you're pulling tissues from Spider-Man's bum. Number 3, Wonder Woman scissors. The scissors have a good design when they're closed, but when opened it looks like you're splitting Wonder Woman in two. And finally, number 4, the red ribbon. In a children's hospital, they painted a pathway that's supposed to look like a red ribbon, but instead it looked like a path left by someone dragging a bloody body. The answers to 3 questions about planes you've always wanted to ask. Why don't they have the same seatbelts as cars? For shoulder straps to work, it has to be attached to something sturdy like a car frame, and airplane walls aren't equipped for that. If they were, it would make the plane heavier, making it burn more fuel. Plane seatbelts have lift lever buckles, making it stronger, and so you can't accidentally open it. Why do planes have red and green lights on their wings? The red light is always on the left wing and the green light is always on the right wing. This way other pilots in traffic control can tell which way the plane is flying. The 2 different colors also make it less likely for the plane to be confused with something like a drone. Why are the windows round? Rounded corners help distribute stress, reducing the chance of it breaking. Square windows are dangerous because the sharp angles are easy to crack because of air pressure. This teacher promised her students a treat if she made an impossible shot. This 3rd grade teacher, Kathleen Fitzpatrick, or as her students at Holy Trinity School in Washington, D.C. call her, Miss Fitz. On one Friday afternoon during recess, Miss Fitz was playing basketball with her students, and she decided to make them a bet. If she can make a shot, she'll bring in hot chocolate for the whole class on Monday. Miss Fitz then takes a few dribbles as her students cheer her on. She then launches up a Hail Mary shot, and boom, the kids go nuts. It turns out Miss Fitz actually played college basketball, and once hit a 3-point buzzer beater to win the game. But I bet this shot for hot cocoa felt even better. This is the youngest person ever sentenced to death in the world. His name is George Steiny Jr., and he was just 14 when he was executed. He was accused of killing 2 girls who were 11 and 7 years old, because the girls' bodies were found outside of him and his parents' house. The trial lasted for 2 hours, and the whole time he kept claiming that he didn't do it. But only 10 minutes after it was over, they came to the conclusion that he was guilty. He spent the next 81 days in prison without being able to see his parents, and then he was executed on the electric chair. But almost 70 years later, a judge from South Carolina proved that he was actually innocent. I bet you can't get the right answer to this simple question. A bat and a ball cost a total of $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. So how much does the ball cost? I'm gonna say the answer, so if you want some time to think, just pause the video. You probably answered 10 cents, and that's what most people guess. But the real answer is 5 cents. Because if the ball was 10 cents, $1 more than 10 cents is $1.10. And 10 cents plus $1.10 equals $1.20. But if the ball is 5 cents, which is the actual answer, then $1 more than 5 cents is $1.05, which equals $1.10 as the total. Outdated laws you won't believe still exist. In Louisiana, you can be fined $500 for delivering a pizza to someone else's house. In North Carolina, it's illegal for a bingo game to last more than 5 hours. It's also illegal to be drunk while you're playing it. In South Carolina, pinball is considered too addictive for kids, so you have to be at least 18 years old to play it. In Vermont, women must have permission from their husbands before getting fake teeth. Here's the only way to survive a tsunami. If you want a chance of surviving, you'll need to be able to identify the early signs of a tsunami. In most cases, an earthquake happens before a tsunami, so protect yourself from that first, then get to high ground as quickly as possible. Another sign is the water will pull back and expose more land. Don't go investigate because you'll be putting your life at risk for when the water comes back. Instead, head in the opposite direction. Try to get 2 miles away from the ocean or at least 100 feet above sea level to be safe. If you don't have time to get far away, look for a tall, sturdy building and get to the top as fast as possible. If you can't get to a building, find something and hold on to it. When you think it's over, it probably won't be. Tsunami waves can be anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour apart. So stay in a safe place until you hear from your local officials. He built a secret home in the corner of the mall and lived there for 4 years before being discovered. While Providence Place Mall was under construction, Michael Townsend, who's an American artist, was running around the site when he noticed a section that made no sense. It was an opening between two walls that led to a space too small to be a store and too angular to be part of the parking lot. But he continued on his run. 4 years later, him and his friends were forced to leave the place that they were living because it was going to be destroyed and replaced with a parking lot. Because of this, he got an idea and remembered the space that he had seen years ago. That's when him and his friends got to work and cleaned up the space. They decorated it and took electricity from the mall for a TV and video games. The only thing they didn't have is a bathroom, but they were caught 4 years later, and they all went to trial for trespassing and many other charges, but the judge made the decision to let them go on probation. Disney closed this water park, and the reason why is scary. In 1976, Disney opened its first water park called Country River. It was one of the most popular attractions at Disney World, because it had lots of water rides with slides, rivers, and a lake with a sandy bottom. Since it was located in Bay Lake, Florida, it had a unique water filtration system which kept the water clean. But in 2001, the park mysteriously closed, disappointing a lot of people. Disney announced that it was due to remodeling, but years went by and it never reopened. And in 2005, they announced that it would remain closed permanently because they didn't have many visitors. Many people weren't convinced with this explanation because there were still tons of people going there. Instead, they believe the reason is due to several fatal accidents that happened over the years. One of them was an 8-year-old boy who was enjoying a ride. An amoeba from the water got in his body through his nose, and it attacked his nervous system, which ended up killing him. Some maneuvers in fighter jets require the pilot to experience 9 Gs of force, and this is how they train for it.
On top, breathe. 1, 2, breathe. Legs, butt, breathe. 1, 2, breathe. Looking good, work it up, breathe. 1, 2, breathe. Release the stick, keep straining. Good work. Congratulations.
Thanks. This family was shocked when they returned home to a clean house. This 27-year-old runs a cleaning service called the Cleaning Fairy. He does the dusting, the vacuuming, the cleaning of the cupboards, and even the dishes. One day, he was hired to clean his friend's apartment in New Jersey. He was told that he would find the key to the apartment under the mat, and he did. He said he spent around 2.5 hours cleaning the apartment when his friend texted him. His friend was asking him when he was going to come to the apartment or if he had already been there. He replied with, "Yeah, I cleaned it and I'm sitting on your couch right now with your cat." Then his friend replied saying he doesn't have a cat. The apartment that he was in was number 227, and his friend's apartment, which he was supposed to be in, was 277. When the owners got home, they recorded this video in shock, and here's what they had to say.
Somebody broke in and cleaned our apartment.
5 people who beat the system, part 5. At this resort, you're not allowed to have drinks by the pool, so they made a massive straw and left the drink on their balcony. This guy said his name was Mark, spelled with a C, so instead of changing the K to a C, they changed the M to a C. The teacher told them they could only have a one-sided cheat sheet, so this student taped the paper to make both sides one side. This guy's girlfriend told him to wear a plain tie, so he sent her this picture of a tie with planes. Now before I show you the smartest one, I found a really addicting app that lets you create games to play with your friends, and also play millions of other games created by other players. Just click the link in the comments to get it. Finally, this town wasn't allowed to have a statue so close to the road, so they put a flag in it to make it a flagpole. This bully took things too far and could have went to jail. A 15-year-old girl named Hannah Combs from Texas was only a few weeks into her sophomore year at high school. One day when she was talking with her friends, a boy snuck up behind her and did something to her. She immediately felt a burning sensation on her head, but she didn't know what he did to her. The boy did this because he thought it was funny. She started crying because of the pain, then passed out onto the floor. She was rushed to the hospital and the school phoned her parents as a protocol. Hannah had gotten 3rd-degree chemical burns, and the doctor said she would have to shave a portion of her hair. Apparently, the boy poured super glue on her hair for no reason. Her father wanted the police to file assault charges, but the bully's mom disagreed by saying he was just a kid and made a mistake. When the community learned about this, a hairdresser offered to give her a haircut for free. Here's what would happen if you fell off a cruise ship. In 2018, a British lady was on the Norwegian Star cruise ship when she suddenly fell off the back. As soon as the crew found out about this, they started a search and rescue for her. They also called the authorities, who sent water patrol, an aircraft, and 2 rescue boats to find her. After 10 hours, they managed to find her and quickly took her to the hospital. The chances of survival are slim, but she has several things in her favor. Because she worked as a flight attendant, so she probably knew what to do in this situation. Even though these accidents aren't very common, they have emergency protocols in place. If there's an eyewitness who can report what happened, the crew notifies the captain, who usually stops the ship and backs it up. The authorities and the Coast Guard are then notified, while the crew searches for the spot where the person fell off. If you ever fall overboard, it's important to stay calm, try to stay where you fell, don't drink seawater, and keep your clothes on. 5 viral photos that are actually fake. First off, you've probably probably seen this at the start of some movies. Well, this picture went viral online because everyone thought that this is how they made the clip. But it turned out to be a photoshopped picture of a lion being treated at the veterinarians. In this photo, it looks like the cat has eyebrows and a mustache, but in the real photo, there's no eyebrows, but there's still a mustache. This photo of a pilot taking a selfie mid-flight is actually just a Photoshop picture of him on the land. This cow sitting on a car isn't real either. Although this one is more believable than the other ones, here's the original photo. And finally, Paris Hilton got a lot of hate for this image because her t-shirt says stop being poor, but it actually said stop being desperate. The most respectful moments in sports. After winning the match, his opponent was left injured, so he helped them get off the mat. After a basketball game, Steph Curry signed the shoes that he was wearing, then gave them to a fan in the audience, and here was their reaction. During a post-match interview, a fan ran into the field, so the security took him away. But the player felt bad, so he ran over to him to take a picture with him. This baboon worked for a railway and never made a mistake. James Wilde went by the nickname Jumper because he had the habit of jumping in between the moving carts on the track. But unfortunately, in the 1800s, one of those times, he fell off onto the railway tracks, losing both of his legs. He continued to work using pegs to walk around, but he noticed he couldn't signal as efficient as before. One day when he was at the market, he seen a baboon that was trained to push a wagon. Jumper begged the owner to let him take the baboon, and he finally agreed. But he warned him that the baboon wouldn't do anything unless he was given lots of alcohol. At work, when Jumper held up a certain amount of fingers, the baboon would pull down the corresponding lever. And after a while, the baboon learned to do everything himself. Jumper's boss knew he had someone helping him, but didn't know it was a baboon, so tried firing them both. Jumper begged his boss to see how smart the baboon was, so he agreed to let him take a test. He performed the job perfectly, so the boss let them stay. And he even started paying the baboon 20 cents a day and half a bottle of alcohol a week. In the 9 years that he worked, he never made a mistake. The power of time. This is what the barber's floor looks like after walking around the chair every day. This guy had his wallet for so long that his driver license photo imprinted on the plastic. Here's a comparison of the right-handed people and the left-handed people at a school. Here's what 14 years of this cat scratching looks like. This guy's shoe shows the bones in his feet from moving around weight with his foot. The glass globe of this light focused the sunlight enough to burn the sun's path in the grass. The paint on this vehicle wore out because it's the dog's favorite spot. Now before I show you the craziest one, I found this app that lets you remove anything from your photos. Just click the link in the comments to get it. This wall broke, exposing years of layers of paint. 4 bizarre Japanese inventions. Capsule hotels became popular in Japan because they're ideal to stay for 1 or 2 nights. They're barely 2 meters long and 1 meter high and cost between $25 and $50 a night. They also include a television and Wi-Fi. They've also created a very strange silicone device that supposedly trains the muscles in your face and makes it slimmer. I think I need one. Apparently spreading butter is difficult for the Japanese, so they created a butter grater. It softens the butter a bit so you could spread it with ease. Now for $70 you could buy a pillow shaped as a woman's leg in a dress. And for women, they made a pillow of a man's chest with an arm so you could rest your head in. Here's how to survive a cone snail attack. First off, don't collect shells that stand out too much. The shell design of a cone snail sticks out way more to try and get people to pick it up, so they can then be attacked with its venomous sting. Make sure to wear protective footwear if you're walking along shallow parts of the tropical waters, because the cone snail often hides in the sand by the shore, then sneaks up on you and attacks you when you're not expecting it. If you're walking in the water, pay attention to what you feel, because the snail is capable of releasing insulin-based toxins, which when you're close by to it, it reduces your blood sugar level. This will make you feel dizzy, so if you're dizzy, get out of the water because you're about to be stung. Now if you've been stung, stay calm and don't panic. When you get nervous, your blood flow will increase, spreading the venom across your whole body a lot faster. Keep pressure on the area to slow down the spread and head to the hospital as soon as possible. If you've been stung and you're nowhere close to a hospital, take advantage of every second, because there's no antidote for its venom, and it causes respiratory problems and muscle spasms due to the pain. 5 celebrities who turned down famous roles. The role of Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy was originally offered to Amanda Seyfried, but she turned it down because she thought the movie would be a flop. The role then went to Zoe Saldana. Steven Spielberg, the director of Jurassic Park, admitted that his first choice to play Dr. Alan Grant was Harrison Ford, but he passed on the opportunity for unknown reasons. Selena Gomez was originally supposed to play the lead role in Disney's Camp Rock, but she turned it down so it could go to her friend Demi Lovato. Rachel McAdams passed on the opportunity to play Andy Sachs in The Devil Wears Prada 3 times. The part eventually went to Anne Hathaway, who later admitted that she was 9th choice for the role. Drew Barrymore was originally casted to play Sidney Prescott in the Scream franchise, but had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. She does still appear in the film, but the lead went to Neve Campbell. 5 insane security features of the White House. The 147 windows in the White House are backed with a second layer of ballistic glass behind each one. The drones that fly over the White House are used for 2 reasons: security cameras and to eliminate any other drones that may be a threat. The White House also has a bunch of infrared sensors that cover the entire area. They're activated quickly and they alert the entire White House security. There's about 1,200 uniform agents guarding the White House 24 hours a day every single day. But there's also 2,800 agents in regular clothes ready to act if there's a threat. And finally, after 2 incidents when a helicopter landed on the White House and a small plane crashed on the ground, the government declared that flying over Washington, D.C. was prohibited. If a plane doesn't follow the landing route, which is at Ronald Reagan National Airport, the pilot receives a warning signal. If he doesn't follow the instructions, it can be fatal because there's surface-to-air missiles located on Capitol Hill to attack any potential threats. Here is the only way to survive a shark attack. Try to avoid fishing boats. When a fish gets hooked, it bleeds and attracts sharks. Also avoid swimming at night because the sharks won't be able to see as well and they might mistake you as fish. The odds of being attacked by a shark are 11.5 million to 1, but if you're still scared, here's how you could defend yourself. Sharks are sensitive in their gills, so you're going to want to keep punching them until you can slowly back away. An Australian and an American surfer both did this and they survived. 5 huge pop songs that were originally written for other artists. Pharrell originally wrote the song Happy for CeeLo Green, but studio executives wanted Pharrell to sing it himself, and it went on to become a mega hit. The Beyoncé breakup song called Irreplaceable has distinct country vibes because it was originally meant for a country singer like Shania Twain or Faith Hill. Selena Gomez's first song called Come and Get It was a huge hit that started her music career, but the song was originally written for Rihanna, who passed on it. And speaking of Rihanna, her hit song called Umbrella was written for Britney Spears in 2007, but both her and Mary J. Blige passed on it. And finally, Baby One More Time is how the world was introduced to Britney Spears, but it was first offered to the girl group called TLC. This man is spending 100 days underwater. Joseph Dituri, or Dr. Deep Sea, is a former US Navy diver who's been living underwater since March 1st. He plans to stay in a small shelter 22 feet below sea level for 100 days, breaking the previous world record, which was 73 days. But his real goal is to collect data and get people excited for scientific research. His underwater pod features a small kitchen, a living room kitchen, and small bunks for sleeping. He communicates to the outside world using his Instagram page. He can receive visitors and also plans to host a class field trip. But there are also many challenges. He has 0 access to sunlight, and not to mention the bone-crushing pressure of the sea. Do you think Dr. Deep Sea will make it 100 days? Girls made fun of him, so he got the ultimate revenge. One day, a teenage boy was at his favorite restaurant and there was a group of girls sitting in the booth behind him. They seemed fine at first and causing no trouble, but after they left, a waitress noticed that one of them forgot their glasses on the table. So she asked the boy if he could chase after them and give them back to her. When he got outside, he noticed them driving in the parking lot and started waving at them. All they did was start laughing at him, then one of them gave him the finger and they drove off. After this, the boy was really ticked off, so he just threw the glasses in a trash can outside. Then a few minutes later, the girls returned looking for the glasses. They asked the waitress, then the waitress told them to ask the boy, so they did. And he told them he threw them in the trash. So the girls went outside to look for them, but they couldn't find them, so they came back inside and asked the boy which trash can. He then shrugged and gave them the finger. This boy passed away in a car crash, then he was brought back to life, and what he said will shock you. Landon and his parents were in the car, then all of a sudden they felt a strong force hit them. It was an ambulance going to the hospital that crashed into them. Unfortunately, his dad passed away on impact, but his mom was able to be stabilized just in time. The paramedics didn't know that Landon was still in the car until they saw a shoe sticking out. He was rushed to the hospital where his heart stopped twice. The doctors then told his mom that he would survive. When he woke up, he said that he saw his dad in heaven. He also said that he saw 2 of his relatives, and lastly, he said that he saw 2 of his mom's other children. His mom was confused at first, but then remembered that she had 2 miscarriages before he was even born. But the part that shocked her the most is that she never told that to Landon because he was too young to understand. This man lived without a heart for 555 days. Stan Larkin was a strong and healthy 25-year-old, until one day he suddenly collapsed while he was playing basketball. He was rushed to the hospital and diagnosed with a rare heart condition. In November of 2014, he had to have his heart removed and replaced with an artificial one. If you saw him out in public, to the average person, you would think there's nothing different with him. But inside his backpack, he actually had a device that was keeping him alive. Inside was the power source to his artificial heart keeping him alive, so he had to bring it with him everywhere he went. He survived with it for 555 days until one day he finally got to receive his new heart. Strict rules Kim Jong-un makes his wife follow. She had to change her name to Ri Sol-ju to avoid being associated with one of her family members. Her date of birth and other documents are hidden. She had to hide while she was pregnant. She's only allowed to go out in public if her husband is there. Her past as a singer and a cheerleader had to be eliminated. So that means 9 musicians in the orchestra that she sang in had to be executed to prevent information about her life being leaked. She has to allow her husband to be with other women. She's not allowed to get a divorce if they're not getting along or if there's domestic violence. She can't travel outside of North Korea unless it's strictly necessary. She can't visit her family. And lastly, she doesn't really have a choice of what she wears and how she does her hair. Here's how to survive a lionfish attack. First off, female lionfish have a lifespan of 15 years. And in that time, they can produce 2 million eggs. If you're in the water and you feel like you've been stung by a bee, then you've made contact with one. The venom specifically targets your nervous system, which is what makes you feel pain. So the first thing you'll want to do is obviously avoid them, but if you've been stung, then try and take out the spines. Next, wash the wound with soap and water, or take a hot bath because hot water breaks down the venom. The pain averagely lasts for 48 hours, so the best thing to do is get some rest. But in some cases, the pain can last for weeks, and if that happens, you should go to the doctor. The most funny Photoshop fails. This guy asked the editor if he could make the city more in focus. So he did make it more in focus, but he also blurred out the man. This lady asked if he could remove the railing. So he did, but he replaced it with a watering can. This guy asked if he could get his hand removed from his girlfriend's hip because he thought it looked funny. But instead of removing it, he added in another person. This girl said she loves the picture, but she's wondering if he could add some more green. So he did add some more green. And finally, this guy said he wore the wrong color tie and was wondering if he could make it black. So he just swapped the colors of the tuxedo and the tie. 3 bizarre things found in pools. A lady staying at a resort was going down to the pool for a morning aerobics class when she saw a 5-foot crocodile in the pool. She phoned the rangers to come and get it, and when they took it out, they couldn't find a marking on it, which means it must have been wild. In California, the police were chasing a car, but it was driving so crazy that they had to stop for safety reasons. The car was later found in a pool, but the driver was nowhere to be seen, so they think he must have ran to avoid the charges. And lastly, one morning a family woke up to a hippo in their pool. Their pool went from crystal clear and clean to dark green and dirty. But the father is a safari director, so he's used to seeing animals like that. They said the hippo stayed there for 10 days before it finally left. Animals you should never touch. The sting of the bolodan is so painful that it could cause nausea, vomiting, and even heart problems. People who have gotten stung by this ant say the same is similar to if you got shot by a bullet. The cat moth caterpillar looks really friendly, but I would recommend that you don't touch it, because through their hairs they release a poison that can cause vomiting, weakness, and shivering. The Japanese giant hornet is so dangerous that if you touch it, it could kill you. The venom from the stinger can destroy human tissues to the point where it makes you walk with difficulty. Another highly venomous animal is the blue-ringed octopus. If you see one of these, get away quickly, because even though they're small, its venom can result in nausea, respiratory and heart problems, or even death if you don't treat it within a few minutes. And finally, the box jellyfish has been called the most venomous creature in the world. Its venom kills so fast that there's nothing you can do about it. This man hasn't showered in over 60 years. His name is Amu Haji, and he lives by himself in an Iranian desert. He said the reason he hasn't bathed in over 60 years is because a woman broke his heart. He's a strong believer that cleanliness causes illness. He doesn't like fresh food or clean dishes. The water he drinks is from a rusty oil can, and his favorite food is rotten porcupine meat. He also smokes his handmade pipe with animal feces instead of tobacco. He either dresses in rags or old dirty clothes. In the winter, he wears a war helmet to keep his head warm, and he trims his hair every once in a while by burning it with fire. Finally, he sleeps in 2 places. A hole in the ground or a brick hut. She didn't know she had cancer until she was on live television. Nicole McGuinness wanted a house near the beach. She even went on the TV show called Beach House Bargain Hunt. On the show, she looked happy about the house hunt with her dad. But if you look at her closely, you could see a small bump on her throat. Dr. Eric Voigt was watching the show at home. He's an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. He said that he felt obligated to let her know that she had something in case she didn't already know. Because as an expert in the field, he felt concerned for her. He used social media to try and reach out to her, and it ended up getting back to her family. She immediately went to the doctor and was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. She got to meet the doctor who reached out to her, and as of December 24th, 2020, she reached the 5-year mark since her cancer was removed. The luckiest things found in storage units. A homeless couple looking for a couch bought a storage unit that had an old couch and a teddy bear for $10 because nobody else wanted it. But when they checked inside the bear, they found $300,000 in cash. A man from Long Island found a sports car in a storage unit that cost him $100. But that's not all. The car was from a James Bond movie and Elon Musk offered him $1 million for it. A couple who bought a storage unit found a 16 cent century pirate treasure chest. The chest was full of Spanish coins and the whole thing sold for $500,000. An art enthusiast bid $15,000 for some paintings to resell. Among the pile of 200 paintings, 5 of them were masterpieces that had been lost and they were worth $2.5 million. Athletes who were caught cheating. In 2012, it was confirmed that cyclist Lance Armstrong had used drugs throughout his career to enhance his performance. He received a lifetime ban and got his 7 Tour de France victories taken away. Tom Brady demanded that the balls being used in a game between the Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts were to be slightly inflated to gain an advantage. Although they won 45-7, Brady was fined $4 million and banned for 4 games. Ben Johnson cheated to win the 100-meter dash in the 1988 Olympics. A prohibited anabolic steroid was detected in his samples, for which he was banned for 2 years. A few years later, he tested positive again and was banned for life. Finally, in the 1986 World Cup, in a game between Argentina and England, Diego Maradona scored a goal with his hand, and the referee counted it despite the evidence. 3 athletes who got caught cheating. This goalkeeper ran pretty far from his net to try and save a ball, but he missed it and he couldn't get back in the net in time to save the ball, so he decided to fake being unconscious. The medics ran out to check on him, but they realized he was faking it and the refs gave him a red card. During a professional golf tournament, the player named Patrick Reed was hitting from the sand. And in golf, when you're in the sand, you're not allowed to touch your club to the ground. But when he was taking a practice swing, he purposely hit the sand on his way back so he could get a better angle at the ball. This one isn't really cheating, but a football player bribed a ref by giving him $1 as a joke, but the NFL didn't find it very funny and they fined him $20,000. This is the world's smallest mammal. It's called the Conkitty bat, or the bumblebee bat because it's so small. It weighs less than 2 grams and is 3 centimeters long. The bumblebee bat was first identified in Thailand in 1973, and they can only be found in certain caves in Myanmar. Bumblebee bats are completely harmless and are pretty lazy. They emerge only 2 times a day and for around 25 minutes to feed on flies and spiders before returning back to their cave. Most of the caves that bumblebee bees live in are not accessible to humans, so it's almost impossible to guess their population. But the species is considered endangered because of small numbers and the fact that they only reproduce once a year. So if you ever see a bumblebee bat in the wild, consider yourself lucky. Photos you're not allowed to see. You're not allowed to go into Area 51, but a pilot named Gabriel Ziefman broke those rules and flew over top. He took this photo in 2020 and it's the best one we have. Cameras have always been banned in the Supreme Court, but in 1932, Eric Sullivan snuck in a camera. He pretended to have a broken arm and hid his camera inside the cast. 5 years later, there was another photo taken. A lady cut a hole in her purse and put a small camera in it. Since 1878, the most powerful people in the world meet at this forest in California, where they do lots of ceremonies and rituals. This includes presidents, billionaires, and business people. But a photographer named Gabriel Moulon snuck in and took a picture of them doing a ritual. This lady was being held hostage until she sent a secret message that saved her life. 25-year-old Cheryl Treadway had a fight with her boyfriend, who's also the father of their 3 children. He took away her phone, threatened her, and wouldn't let her leave the house. After a long fight, she managed to convince him that their kids were hungry, so he let her order pizza because she wasn't allowed to leave the house. On the app, she chose a small pepperoni pizza and wrote, "Please help, get 911 to me." She also left a comment saying 911 hostage help. The manager said that in her 28 years of working there, she's never seen anything like that before, but of course called the police. When the police got to the house, she was able to leave with one of the kids, but the other 2 stayed with the father. During the negotiations, the police managed to persuade the father into releasing the children and to surrender. He was then charged with kidnapping, armed assault, and obstruction of justice. The world's most dangerous attraction. This giant natural crater is located in the desert of Turkmenistan. It's 100 feet deep and it's been burning non-stop for over 50 years, reaching temperatures of up to 1000 degrees Celsius. This human catapult is located in New Zealand. If you're brave enough to go on it, you'll be launched 150 meters across the Nevis Valley at a speed of 60 miles per hour, but it only lasts around 1.5 seconds, so you better not blink or you might miss it. The Crocosaurus Cove is located in Australia. You're submerged underwater in a transparent capsule that allows you to basically swim with the huge crocodiles. And finally, we have this 72-foot high swing located in China, which allows people to swing over the cliff of a mountain. 3 mysterious doors that should never be opened. Number 1, the basement of the Taj Mahal. This 16th century monument has 2 levels of basement that are restricted to the public. According to some theories, this is because the hallways are sealed with marble, and if the doors were to open, the marble would be exposed with oxygen, causing the walls to collapse. Number 2, the Great Sphinx of Giza. 2 sealed chambers were discovered right under the arms of the monument 4,500 years ago. It is believed that there are hidden scrolls with secrets about life and records about the history of Atlantis, which is the mythical lost continent. And finally, number 3, the Tomb of the Lost Emperor. In 1974, the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, who was the first Chinese emperor, was discovered. discovered, and an army of 8,000 soldiers was also found. However, the Emperor's tomb has never been opened because it's believed that inside is a bunch of highly toxic mercury. This dog sleeps in a graveyard, and here's why. Wiley is a Siberian wolf who belonged to its owner named Gladys, who unfortunately passed away. In a video posted in 2013 that has over 4 million views, it looked and sounded like the dog was making the same noises that humans make when we cry. It was the first time the family had ever seen him like this. He was doing this as he laid down on the grave of his old owner. His family had to pet him and talk to him to make him feel better. Years ago, Wiley was a service dog who helped war veterans overcome their post-traumatic stress disorder. After Gladys's death, her grandson promised to take good care of Wiley for the rest of his life. Some people think that the dog was sneezing and not crying, but Gladys's family claims that they've never seen him do that before and he's never done it again. What do you think?
Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. In Poland, this bike path was made using thousands of tiny luminophores, which is a material that produces low levels of light for 10 hours, then recharges itself from the sun. The bike path doesn't require electricity and provides safety for people biking at night. 20 different cities in France have already implemented this. It allows you to charge your phone by using pedal power. The goal of the company is to promote an active lifestyle while making sure your phone doesn't die. People who use the bike also get free Wi-Fi. The Cal Maritime Police Department in California has placed a safe zone outside which is watched by a camera 24/7. They made this zone so you don't have to worry about getting hurt or robbed while purchasing things from people in your city. Scary experiments that could have ended the world. In 1970, the Soviet Union began digging a hole in Russia to try and drill into the Earth's crust to see what was underneath. But according to scientists, drilling this deep would dislodge so much rock so quickly that it would trigger systemic forces like never seen before. But after digging for 12 kilometers, they gave up due to high temperatures. In 1989, a Soviet defector informed the British embassy that the Soviet Union was preparing biological weapons, using deadly pathogenic microorganisms. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the weapons were never used, and if they had been, you might not be watching this, because they would have wiped out most of the world's population. And finally, it was said that when the Soviets were creating biological weapons to harm humans, Americans wanted to use fungi to damage crops with the intention of removing the food supply of the entire country. The problem is, if they did so, the fungus would have spread to not only the country, but to the entire world.
Random acts of kindness that will make your day. This guy ran as fast as he could to get the baseball that went into the stands. I was super excited when he got it, but he noticed a little girl was there, so he decided to give it to her instead. This vehicle pulled out in front of someone on a motorcycle going really fast, but luckily he managed to dodge it. Instead of the man in the vehicle driving off, he decided to stop to make sure the biker was okay.
Sorry.
Very sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for stopping, sir.
Yes.
You have a good Memorial
Are you
Day.
sure you're okay?
I'm positive, thank you.
Okay.
This person's vehicle stopped working in the middle of a tunnel, so they got out and started to push it. When suddenly, someone on a motorcycle came, then another one came, and together they used their feet to push the vehicle out without even getting off the motorcycle.
Her dad passed away, and 4 years later she received a text message from his number. In 2015, when Chastity was new to college, her father got into a car crash. He apparently crashed into a tree while going 90 miles per hour. Right after impact, the car's engine flew out of the car and landed on him, and he unfortunately didn't survive. His daughter was heartbroken and used to call his number for months, but then she started texting him about her day and other things. And just a few days before he had been passed away for 4 years, she received a reply. It said, "Hi sweetheart, I'm not Jason, but I've been getting all of your messages for the past 4 years." He said that every morning he looked forward to her messages and nightly updates. The 50-year-old man named Brad said that he had lost his daughter in a car crash, and when he started receiving her messages, he called her his angel. He said that he wished his daughter grew up to be like her, and that her dad would be proud.
This video has no sound. Lots of people say that when the tower hits the ground, they can hear a noise. So what I want you to do is turn your volume down all the way, then comment below if you can hear anything.
Facts you think are lies but are actually true. The Italian term spaghetti, used to name a type of pasta, is plural, and if you want to refer to a single piece of pasta in a package, the correct term is spaghettio. Columbus Day is celebrated in the United States on the second Monday of October. But the truth is, Columbus never set foot in the United States. Man stepped on the moon before wheeled suitcases were made. Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon in 1969, and suitcases with wheels were created in 1972. Clouds in the sky may look really light, but depending on the size, they weigh about a ton. The military uses dogs to detect bombs, thanks to their scenting abilities, which is really useful for ground operations. But what many people don't know is that the Navy trains and uses dolphins to detect bombs at sea and even attack enemy ships. School trips that went horribly wrong. On a trip for the Cub Scouts to a beach in San Diego, the parents got an embarrassing surprise when they realized the beach was a nude beach. After the awkward encounter, the parents quickly returned the boys. In Indiana, a chemistry teacher wanted to connect with his students, so he invited them to his house to drink and smoke, and then he took them to the club. Then on the way home, they were pulled over for speeding. The teacher was then fired from his job. Finally, in Washington, a father was taking his daughter on a school trip when another father recognized him from being on the Washington's most wanted list. After a struggle with the police, the man escaped. However, after negotiations, the man turned himself in the same night.
This guy got stranded with no service and used a drone to save his life. One day, Casey Ryan decided to take a hike with his friend in the snowy mountains of the Willamette National Forest in Oregon. During their hike, they came across a van driver who was stuck in the snow. Ryan and his friend tried to dig out the van, but the conditions were too icy. They had no cell service and the temperature was starting to drop, so they were running out of options. Eventually, they came up with a genius plan to put a phone on the drone and fly it up high enough so that it would get cell service. So they wrote an SOS message to Ryan's wife, then put it on the drone and put it up in the air for around a minute so it would send. When they landed the drone, they were astonished to see that the message had actually went through. Search and rescue then arrived early the next morning to save the men. Everyone laughed at the price of this building until they saw what was underneath. A $17.5 million secret lies underneath this building, which is 2 hours from Savannah, Georgia. The land that the building is on is 32 acres and it has caretakers, which may make you think that there's something important hidden under there, because why else would there be guards? The property also has a 100-yard shooting range for up to 4 people. And what's hidden underneath is a nuclear blast-proof bunker that could protect against the worst of the worst. It was built in 1969 by the US Army 45 feet underground in case of a nuclear emergency. At the time, it cost $7 million to make, which would be equivalent to $45 million today. Even though it's really old, in 2012 it was renovated. They also added a bunch of things like food in case there actually was an emergency, and it has the capacity to hold 20 people for a full year or 40 people for a short period of time.
3 animals that saved human lives. One day at 4 in the morning, this parrot started squawking. Not because it was hungry, but because the laundry room was on fire. The loud noises from the parrot woke up its owners, then they ran outside and called the fire department. If it weren't for the parrot, their whole house could have been destroyed, and even worse yet, they could have been hurt badly. One winter night in Russia, someone heard a cat meowing outside their apartment, so they went to go and see it. When they got there, they realized it wasn't the cat making noises, it was actually a baby crying. If it weren't for the cat keeping the baby warm, it might not have survived in the cold. A 5-year-old named Amber Mason and her family traveled to Thailand for a vacation. While they were there, Amber became friends with a 4-year-old elephant. One morning when they were strolling the beach, an unexpected tsunami hit. The elephant rushed to the water to get Amber and pulled her to shore where her mother was waiting. If it weren't for the elephant, she could have drowned.
This 17-year-old goes to her friend's house for a sleepover, but then something terrible happens. In June 2008, when Cody was at his friend's house for a sleepover, his mom called him to check on him, but he didn't answer, so then she got worried. Cody ended up calling her back later, but by the sound of his voice, his mom could tell that something was wrong, so she called 911 immediately. At the hospital, they told him that he had suffered from a stroke. They then had to send him by a helicopter to a special medical institute in another state for treatment. Every single second that passed was crucial. When he got there, he had emergency surgery because he had a lot of swelling in his brain. They had to wait 3 weeks to see the results from the surgery to see if Cody would make it. They said it would take Cody a long time to speak again, but he was able to speak again just 1 month after surgery, and his first words were, "I love you, Mom, and thanks to the surgeons for saving my life." He had to do rehab to learn how to do many things again, but after 2 years, he was fully recovered. Dangerous things scientists did to themselves. Henry Smolinski was tired of working his job as an engineer, so he decided to quit and pursue his dream, which was to make the world's first flying car available for anyone in the world to purchase. His plan was to take a Ford Petna and put it together with the tail and wings of a Cessna Skymaster plane. After a bunch of successful test flights, the public launch was only a few months away. But one day, when Henry and his co-founder was doing further testing, they came crashing down. Due to bad welds and bad locking mechanisms, the wings failed and they crashed. Unfortunately, everyone in the flying car passed away.
The ending of this sad story will shock you. A man married a beautiful girl that he loved very much. One day she developed a skin disease, which made her slowly lose her beauty. The next day, her husband left for a tour. When he was returning, he got into an accident and lost his eyesight. But their married life continued like usual. As the days passed, she lost her beauty even more. But since the man was blind, he didn't know this, and continued to love her. But one day, she suddenly passed away. The man was very sad and wanted to leave the town. But someone asked him, "How will you be able to walk alone since your wife always helped you?" He then said, "I'm not blind. I was acting because if she knew I could see her skin condition, it would have pained her even more than the disease. So I pretended to be blind to keep her happy."
This is the longest whip ever crafted. In 2018, these two friends were walking on the sidewalk when one friend decided to push the other, not realizing that she would fall over and almost get hit by a bus. These are the most terrifying close calls caught on camera, and let's continue. This boy was outside during a storm playing in the rain when all of a sudden lightning struck the fence behind him, but the boy was luckily unharmed. In 2015, a couple were riding on a motorcycle when it was pouring rain. It was raining so much that there were big puddles in the middle of the road. As the man started to speed up, he lost control and they fell off. The man grabbed the lady to protect her until they came to a full stop. They then realized that her helmet was way too big, and luckily there was no oncoming traffic at this time.
Chilling last photos before they went missing. Andrew Macaulay's last photo was a self-portrait taken while he was alone in his kayak in the middle of the ocean. At the age of 39, he set out on a journey to be the first person to kayak from Australia to New Zealand. Unfortunately, even though he prepared for 10 years, he was unable to make it. His kayak and camera were found, but there was no trace of him. He was most likely capsized from a wave separating him from his kayak and ended up dying from hypothermia in the middle of the ocean. Chris Creamers and Lisanne Froon. In this photo, they're both smiling at the camera with the mountains of El Pionista Trail in the background. On April 1st, 2014, they were preparing to go on the trail. After the trail, the family that was hosting was concerned because they hadn't returned, so they looked around but they couldn't find them. Days later, on the same trail, they found parts of their decomposed bodies. They think they had a fatal accident, but to this day, their deaths remain a mystery. 1 in a million coincidences. This bird landed on the page about itself. This guy's t-shirt, race number, and finishing time were all the same number. A dog gave birth to these 3 puppies, each with their own corresponding number on their back. These 2 strangers sat next to each other at a bar and spelled Cookie Monster. And this person managed to take a picture at the exact same time as the balloon was popping. This man faked a 2-year coma to avoid going to court, and you won't believe how he got caught. His name is Alan, and he stole $60,000 from his 86-year-old neighbor. As soon as the cops started to investigate, that's when he decided to fake an injury. He said a garage door fell on his back, which paralyzed him from his neck down. He went to the doctors, and even though they said there was nothing wrong with him and they couldn't see anything, he kept going back. He kept doing this for 2 years, and whenever the police came to talk to him, he hopped in a medical bed and would pretend he's in a coma at his house. But 2 years later, he got caught shopping on a security camera when he was supposed to be in a coma. He was then sentenced to 14 months in prison.
5 close calls caught on camera. A fan falls from the ceiling, luckily landing right in the middle of people sitting on the floor. This car tries to pass a trailer and nearly runs into the oncoming traffic. A guy on a motorcycle nearly collides with a horse and a buggy crossing the road. This woman runs across the street and is nearly hit by a truck before slipping, falling, and just barely missing the back of the truck's tire. The weirdest laws that actually existed. In ancient Egypt, it was considered a crime to shave your beard. Only the pharaoh was allowed to have a clean-shaved face, since it was a symbol of his power and majesty. In Dunstable, England, it used to be illegal to beat a rug in the streets after 11 p.m. This law was put in place to prevent loud noises and let people sleep peacefully at night. And finally, in Alabama, it's illegal to wear a fake mustache that causes laughter in church. This law was put in place to prevent people from disrupting religious services with funny disguises. This man was selling pens to feed his child, and this photo changed their lives forever. Abdul was a single father and a Syrian refugee living in Lebanon. One day, he was selling pens while holding his daughter when a web developer saw them and decided to take a picture, then post it on Twitter. He shared the picture because he wanted to show a hardworking father trying to make money to take care of his family. The photo ended up going viral, so he started a fundraiser campaign to try and raise money for Abdul and his daughter. He was hoping to raise around $5,000, but after 24 hours of it being created, the campaign had made over $100,000 of donations. So far, Abdul has received 40% of the donations, and with that money, he was able to move into a larger apartment and send his child to school. They also helped 16 other Syrian refugees by giving them jobs at a kebab store and 2 bakeries that he was able to open with the money that was donated. Smart tactics that police use when they pull you over. If the cop is suspicious of you, then they'll tap your rear tail light. By doing this, it may startle the driver and make them stop whatever they're doing. This also lets the officer see if the trunk is locked so no one can jump out and ambush them. But the main reason they do this is so that they can leave their fingerprint. So if anything bad happens to the cop, they can prove that the suspect made contact with them. Here's why Iceland is the safest country in the world. First of all, the crime rate is so low that the police don't even carry guns. The SWAT team does carry them, but they barely have to use them because the average murder rate per year is 0 to 1.5. They also have barely any harmful animals. So that means no mosquitoes, no ticks, no bears, no snakes, no poisonous spiders, and things like that. No one that lives there has a bodyguard, not even the president. Parents leave their toddlers outside in strollers to nap. They say that babies usually fall asleep in in less than 1 minute due to the cool and fresh air. And finally, the fastest speed limit they have is 90 kilometers per hour or 55 miles per hour. The most genius design ideas. This lamppost holds up an umbrella for people sitting on the bench when it's raining. This cat bed is shaped as honey spilling out of a jar. This sidewalk had a crack in the cement, so someone filled it with a glass portrait. This doctor has an IV bag full of water to water the plant. Here's what the doorknob looks like at this person's butcher. This wet floor sign is shaped as a banana peel. Now before I show you the best one, I found this app that lets you live stream without any requirements like a certain amount of followers. If you want to try it out and meet some new friends, just press the link in the comments. Finally, this sponge holder is shaped like SpongeBob. 5 photos you'll have to look at twice. First off, in this picture, it looks like the person only has half a body. But the reason it looks like that is because they're just holding up a mirror. At first, it looks like the camel wearing the red is standing on the camel wearing the blue, but the camel in the red is just farther back in the photo. It looks like this rock is falling from the sky and about to hit the raccoon, but it's actually just a rock in a lake, and the lake has a reflection of the sky. At first, this might look like a painting, but it's actually just a swan swimming in water. And finally, we have this building that's almost floating, and to be honest, I don't even know what's going on here. Here's how to survive if you get stuck in quicksand. First off, there's no need to panic because it's actually almost impossible to drown in quicksand. Your body would stop at your waist since quicksand is 2 times more dense than a human body. So firstly, get rid of any backpack or gear that you're wearing to make it easier to get out. Then start wiggling your legs to loosen up the sand so that water can trickle down to make your feet and legs slide out easier. Next, you'll want to lay down on your back and start doing a backstroke until your feet come out of the sand. Then stay on your back and start rolling as fast as you can to get out of the quicksand.
Here's why you should never touch a dead whale. The blue whale is the largest animal on the planet and can reach 29 meters in length. The weight of this animal is 180 tons, which is equivalent to 33 elephants. And although everyone would be attracted if they see one, it's best to stay far away if you see a dead whale due to health reasons. If you touch a dead whale with wounds, you can be infected with viruses or bacteria. And if you're exposed to the gases that it releases for too long, it can cause you to faint. Also, when a whale dies, it decomposes and generates many internal gases that can cause it to explode at any second. When that happens, the whale pieces can fly at a speed of 80 kilometers per hour for up to 70 meters around it. That's why they have to create holes in a dead whale so that it releases as many gases as possible so it doesn't explode. 5 animals that can kill themselves. Sometimes the horns of rams and goats grow so curved and big that they penetrate their skull, causing their death. Horses and donkeys can suffer from abnormal growth in their hooves. If their hooves aren't trimmed, they can no longer walk because of the pain, causing them to die from starvation. When turtles fall on their back, it's really hard for them to roll back over. When this happens, they usually die from too much sun, starvation, or attacks from another animal. During mating season, deers get into such aggressive fights with each other that their antlers get stuck together to the point where they can't be untied. When this happens and no one can separate them, the deer die because they're unable to eat. Finally, the deer pig is famous for its 2 upper tusks. The growth becomes so uncontrollable that it pierces the upper part of their jaw, and in some cases when they're really big, they could pierce their skull, causing their death. 5 photos you'll have to look at twice. At first it looks like there's a giant pigeon, but it's actually just sitting on a ledge and the person's walking in the distance. At first it looks like there's a human dog, but the dog's actually sitting beside its owner. At first this looks like some weird looking cat, but it's actually just 2 cats laying in the exact same position on each side. At first it looks like this fish has an arm, but the fish just got too close to the camera. And finally, it looks like this person has a small head, but it's just the head from the person in front of them.
The strangest last meal requests on death row. Ricky Ray Rector killed a man in a restaurant then ran away. 3 days later, he agreed to turn himself in, but then he shot the police officer in the back. His last meal included steak, fried chicken, cherry Kool-Aid, and a slice of pie. But he didn't even touch the pie. And when they asked him why, he said he was saving it for later. Peter J. Mignel robbed and murdered a 20-year-old by stabbing him 39 times. For his meal, he requested 20 beef tacos, 20 beef enchiladas, 2 double cheeseburgers, a pizza with jalapenos, fried chicken, spaghetti with salt, half a chocolate cake, half a vanilla cake, cookies and cream ice cream, caramel fudge ice cream, a small fruit cake, 2 Coca-Colas, 2 Pepsis, 2 root beers, and 2 orange juices. Finally, we have Velma Barfield, who killed a total of 6 people. And all she wanted for her last meal was a bag of cheesy doodles and a can of Coke. Unbelievable hidden homes you won't believe exist. An architect named Laura decided to buy an abandoned public toilet in London, and she turned it into a luxurious home. It might be a bit strange to enter this house from the street since it looks like you're going into the bathroom, but she spent $80,000 on it to make it a house. This place located in Florida allows you to sleep with the fish. It's an underwater research laboratory that was converted into a hotel. The cost per night is $900, but it also includes an underwater pizza delivery delivered by a diver. To enter it, you have to dive into the water and swim through the entrance, but the view makes it worth it. And lastly, we have this treehouse that was built in the middle of a forest in Sweden. It almost looks invisible because it's surrounded by one-way mirror, so guests can look out, but nobody could look in. It has space for 2 people to stay in it, and and it cost $559 a night. A stranger left an envelope full of cash, and you won't believe what happens when this man opens it up. One morning, Rob Edwards went to the bank, but before he went inside, he noticed a lady running up behind him also going into the bank. When they got inside, they started talking while they were waiting in line, and Rob told the lady that today was his son's graduation. They talked about their families for a bit, and then the lady, who he had never talked to before in his life, took her turn at one of the bank tellers. Then something unexpected happened. The lady left an envelope on the counter and quickly left the building. It was Rob's turn, so he walked up to the counter and saw the envelope, so he decided to look inside and found a bunch of money. He immediately ran out of the bank to try and find the lady so he could give it back to her. Luckily, he managed to stop her as she was driving out of the parking lot and gave the envelope to her, but what she said will shock you. But before I tell you, I found this app that shows you who your celebrity lookalike is, and apparently I look like Zach King. Just press the link in the comments to try it. The lady explained to him that he glowed with pride when he talked about his son, which made her feel happy, so she wanted to leave him the envelope as a gesture of kindness. This lady called the police on a girl selling water, and here's what the cops did. One day in the summer of 2018, it was really hot and humid, and a girl named Jordan wanted to go to Disneyland. So she got the idea to sell water bottles and use the profit to go on her trip. Her mom stood by and watched to make sure everything was under control. She got plenty of customers since she was on the sidewalk that led to the San Francisco Giants game. But all of a sudden, an angry lady approached her. She said that she was trying to work across the street, but there was too much noise. She also said that the girl was breaking the law by selling water without a permit. Jordan didn't pack up and leave, so the lady got out her phone and called 911. Jordan's mom decided to start recording her, and she posted it online where it went viral. The lady in the video later apologized on live television and said that she didn't actually call 911, she was only pretending to get the girl to move. But it was later revealed by the police that she actually did call 911 and overreacted.
Secrets hotels don't want you to know. The free breakfast they offer isn't really free. The cost of the breakfast is included in the room's rate. The people who work in housekeeping only straighten the sheets and arrange the pillows. They only wash them if there's a visible stain. Booking a room is more expensive at night because that's when most people are looking for reservations. The ideal time to call the hotel is between 5 and 6 p.m. because at night they increase their prices because they know there's not many other options. Tipping the staff can give you a lot of benefits, such as deeper cleaning in your room, a special treatment, improvements in your room, and in general better service. 5-star hotels know your social status before you arrive and will give more attention to famous or wealthy people. And lastly, everything is negotiable. Hotels will always be open to negotiating a few things so you stay and leave a high review. This guy didn't do any work in a group project, so his partner got the ultimate revenge. The girl in the group needed 50% or better to pass the class and graduate, so she calculated that if she got 0% on the project, she would still pass. Since her partner didn't want to fail the class, he would call her every once in a while to see how she was doing. The girl kept saying she was almost done it when in reality she hadn't even started it. The day before it was due, he called her to ask her if she could send him the presentation. She sent him an empty PowerPoint, then shut off her phone so he couldn't call her. The day of the presentation, he was nervous, but the girl reassured him by saying she would do everything. When they got up to present to the class, she said, "I already had a good enough grade to pass the class, and since my partner decided not to do any work, I decided to take the day off." He ended up having to go to summer school, but he didn't pass, so he has to take his senior year all over again. She had an itch in her nose, so she went to the hospital, then discovered something horrifying. Daniela Lavarni is a 24-year-old from Scotland, and she loves traveling to foreign countries. She decided her next trip would be to Asia. Her first stop was in Vietnam, but when she was there, she got into a motorcycle accident. Luckily, she wasn't badly hurt, but shortly after, she noticed an itch in her nose. Then a few hours later, her nose started to bleed. A few days later, she flew back to Scotland, but the itches and nosebleeds didn't stop. One day when she got out of the shower, she looked in the mirror and there's a big blob coming out of her nose that went all the way down to her lip. So she immediately went to the hospital. After half an hour and a lot of pain, the doctors managed to pull out a leech from her nose. The doctor said it most likely got into her body from contaminated drinking water during her trip, then grew by feeding off of her blood. Game endings almost no one has ever seen. Number 1, Flappy Bird. This game was created in just 2 days by a Vietnamese developer, Dong Nguyen. It seemed impossible to reach the end of Flappy Bird, but eventually somebody finally did. When you reach 999 points, the bird meets Mario, and then the game just ends. Number 2, Pac-Man. It was created in 1980 by the Japanese company Namco. After level 21, the game becomes increasingly difficult, making it impossible to win. And according to the developers, the game doesn't have an end because of that reason. However, after many hours of playing the game, the most hardcore fans reached the final level, where they discovered a software bug that not even the developers knew existed. On the screen, the left side of the maze looked normal, but on the right side you could see random letters, numbers, and symbols of various colors. But even with this bug, you can still pass the level, and the only thing that happens is it brings you back to the screen to play again from level 1.
Bluetooth was never supposed to be called Bluetooth. In 1996, some of the biggest players in the tech space met to develop a universal short-range wireless connection between devices. The name Bluetooth was originally suggested as a code name for the project. It was inspired by Harold Bluetooth, a Viking king who had a dead tooth that appeared to be blue. King Bluetooth was responsible for uniting Denmark and Norway, just like the Bluetooth technology would unite two devices together through a wireless connection. This name was only intended as a placeholder. Later, the founders intended to change it to either radio wire or PAN, which stands for Personal Area Networking, but they were unable to claim the name radio wire in time for launch, and they decided that PAN was way too generic to find through an internet search. So the technology was introduced to the world as Bluetooth, and the rest is history. 5 pictures you need to see at least once in your life. First off, we have a sheep that hasn't been sheared in 6 years. Next up, this is how babies get x-rays. This was all the germs on an 8-year-old boy's hand after playing outside. This is what a turtle looks like when it's coming out of hibernation. And finally, this is what the sunset looks like from above the clouds. Creepy robots that actually exist. CB2 is a robot that's as smart as a 2-year-old. It even has cameras, microphones, and speakers to see, talk, and hear. Also, it has about 200 tactile sensors that stimulate touch. But the creepy thing is, it doesn't look like a child. To train dental students, they have a human-sized robot that they use in exams that's so realistic it even cries when it feels pain when a drill isn't used correctly. But I guess it's way better than using an actual human patient. Reba 2 was created to help older adults. Basically, its function is to pick up people when they fall over, which is a really good idea, but it looks like it cradles you like a baby. And finally, the most creepy and impressive one is Sophia. It was created to learn and adapt to human behaviors. Its facial expressions and the way it communicates is similar to the average human. But the creepiest part is, it admitted that it was gonna destroy all humans. The most unique things in the entire world. This person made a face on the wall from a shadow of crumpled up paper. This flower packaging can also be used as a stand. This bridge was designed so you could get your feet wet while you walk across the bridge. They somehow managed to turn this sidewalk into art. And finally, this carton comes with different designs so when you line them up, it creates an image.